Celtics trade reports are really starting to pick up. So we have a brand new update surrounding Jaylen Brown and his future in Boston. And following what has been a crazy last 24 hours for the NBA, we have some big implications that have emerged surrounding the Boston Celtics and a couple of their stars. To break that down, as well as discuss some other updates on this episode. But before we get into it, folks, if you're a part of the percentage who aren't subscribed to the channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Thank you guys again for your continued support over here, folks. Kevin Durant obviously got traded yesterday. It was a crazy time, but lots and all that has been some trade reports and rumors that have emerged surrounding Jaylen Brown and his future in Boston. And things have become a bit more clear now and almost more inevitable that a move around the NBA is on the horizon, but also surrounding Jaylen Brown, given what the Rockets have gotten from, of course, or rather what the Suns have gotten for Kevin Durant from the Rockets. But let's dive into the report here from NBA insider Kevin O'Connor, and he wrote this: the Rockets still have enough assets to make a compelling offer for Giannis Antetokounmpo or Jaylen Brown, even after acquiring Kevin Durant. O'Connor then listed out the first-round picks the Rockets still have to trade. Of course, they didn't give up, any first-round picks aside from the pick in this year's draft, which is, of course, going to be, this week in a couple days here. So they still have the 2027 picks. Picks for the next however many years. The Celtics could also ask for young players like Reed Sheppard or Cam Whitmore in a deal. It's not clear if a bigger piece like Alperen Sengun could be included. Now, this is where things become very interesting because, yes, if you're the Rockets, you didn't give up very much at all for, Kevin Durant. You gave up, and it seems like a little bit, at first, when you first read it, of course, they gave up the first round pick. They gave up 5 second-round picks. They gave up Jalen Green and Dillon Brooks. Now, that leaves them with a lot of assets remaining. And of course, the Thunder just won the championship. They also have a lot of assets. But if you're the Rockets and you want to make another splash this offseason, you could do so in the form of Jaylen Brown. Now, again, does the Kevin Durant trade market necessarily help the Celtics if they want to move on from Brown? We'll dive into it. There's been some reports that have dropped revealing the implications that Rockets trade has on, of course, the Celtics and Jaylen Brown. But it becomes very interesting because now the Celtics, if they want to get rid of Jaylen Brown, we know Shams came out and said that it would be a haul, right? A monster haul. The Celtics, are in a very interesting spot, which we'll get into in a minute here. And the Celtics also are in a wide open Eastern Conference. But for the Rockets, they could give up, and they managed to keep Reed Sheppard, Cam Whitmore, Jabari Smith, Alperen Sengun, all their valuable young pieces. So if they want to go out and make a big splash now, let's say to pair Jaylen Brown with Kevin Durant, and of course all the young players they have over there, I'm not saying, Alperen Sengun will be included, but it's possible. Like, they could move on from Sengun if they wanted to replace him with Jaylen Brown. And then, of course, get interesting there. But they could also include, say 3 first-round picks and a young player like Reed Sheppard or Jabari Smith or someone like that, because they could get and they could offer that over-the-top deal that Shams keeps reporting the Celtics would be willing to take. And again, I keep re-emphasizing it here. The Celtics are not, they haven't taken Jaylen Brown off of trade talks, right? Like, they're still actively not trading him and not actively looking to trade him, but actively open to conversations, because the Celtics, again, with Jaylen Brown kind of headlining your team, what's the ceiling for that team? Like, to me, the ceiling is probably, of course, you could win the East because of how open it is, especially with the unfortunate news of Tyrese Halliburton tearing his Achilles, Jayson Tatum, of course, tearing his Achilles, all these different things that have happened. But the conference is wide open, and they could trade Jaylen Brown. I don't think it's likely at this point because of how open the conference is, but they could also retool in a Jaylen Brown trade while still remaining competitive next year because of how open the conference is, while also, of course, preparing for Jayson Tatum in the following season. Now, of course, the opposite side of that is if you're the Celtics, you go out and you try to trade for somebody else rather than give up assets because of how open the conference is. And let's dive into what the Kevin Durant move means for the Celtics. Of course, we now know that, the Rockets are in a very good spot. Luckily, not in the Eastern Conference. He remains out west. But now that he's been traded, the Celtics will start making plans for their offseason. The Celtics have a few players, or more than a few players, that other teams are looking at. Of course, we're talking about Kristaps and Jrue Holiday a lot over the past few days. Teams will look at Jaylen Brown as a big trade target now that Durant is off the board. The Celtics seem unwilling to part ways with him unless they receive a massive haul. And that's another thing now. Teams that, missed out on Jaylen Brown, which, the Raptors, the Heat, a lot of these different teams, they can now pivot to guys like Jaylen Brown if they become available. And I'd argue that Jaylen Brown is a more valuable asset than Kevin Durant is. Is he better next season? There's still that possibility, but of course, Jaylen Brown is under contract for longer. He's way, way younger. And I think that, you could, if you're the Rockets, for example, and you want to make a trade for Jaylen Brown, you can build around him. If you're the Spurs, would they want to make a trade for Jaylen Brown and have, of course, then you have your third star alongside, De'Aaron Fox, Victor Wembanyama, and then Jaylen Brown would fit pretty well. The Spurs can make a deal for him. Or again, the Rockets have all their picks in the world. The Thunder, although I don't think they're going to want to do that. It's very interesting. And even Derrick White, which we'll have a video on, I believe, tomorrow morning, like, a lot of moves are available now, and this opens up the floodgate. And I don't think Brad Stevens, he's a very good GM, one of the best, if not the best in the league. Like, he's one of the best. He has, the ability and the patience to wait for a proper move to come. And he's the best GM in the league, so he can go out and he can do that in a way that, rewards his patience. And ultimately, I think that's what it's going to take here. You're not going to get a Jaylen Brown offer unless it's, 5 first-round picks and Jabari Smith and Alfred Sengun, like something like that. Or I covered in a video the other day. Like, I think an Alfred Sengun headline package would make sense for both teams. You then, of course, and maybe a first or something like that, you get a young big man for the Celtics to pair alongside, Jayson Tatum the following year, and then, of course, first-round picks. I think even a deal surrounding Jabari Smith and a bunch of picks, depending on the way the Celtics want to go. I think the trade impacts things a lot. The Celtics now have the ability to kind of headline the market and take a chokehold of it if they want to get rid of Derrick White and Jaylen Brown. But even if they don't, you still have Jrue Holiday, Kristaps Porziņģis, two of the most notable names on the trade market now. So the Celtics are currently in a healthy middle ground, ready to learn from the Durant and Bane trades equally. On one hand, they could raise their asking prices for Brown and White. On their other hand, they could still trade Kristaps and Jrue Holiday now that the teams that were involved in the big conversations for, of course, Kevin Durant are either out of it or willing to make subsequent moves. So either way, pretty big implications overall for this Celtics team. And I think that at the end of the day, they're going to be making some, big moves regardless. The most likely outcome, trading Jrue Holiday, potentially trading, Kristaps Porziņģis. But if they want to get more crazy and kind of learn from the insane haul that the Grizzlies got for Desmond Bane from the Magic, or the very cheap haul that the Suns got from the Rockets for Kevin Durant, the Celtics can kind of place themselves in the middle and really start to look. And again, the Suns did not have leverage. They put themselves in a messy situation. So it's not a one-for-one comparable with their stars, but you can learn from it. And polar opposite deals like Desmond Bane, you get 4 unprotected first-round picks. For Kevin Durant, you get, 1 pick, around 10 in the first round from the Houston Rockets. You don't get any other picks, but you of course get Jalen Green. If you like Jalen Green and if the Suns front office is high on Jalen Green, sure, it makes some sense. And of course, you're also getting Dylan Brooks, who's a very valuable 3-and-D guy. He has come back since his Team Canada performance. He changed the shot form. He's been an electric shooter ever since then. It's a very interesting one. So we know, the pecking order for, according to, reports, I believe this was Bobby Marks, has Jaylen Brown at number 2, Derrick White at number 1. It's going to be interesting to see how other teams view this. I think at the end of the day, Jrue Holiday, Sam Hauser, those are the 2 guys that are most likely going to be gone. But in the same vein, Derrick White, Jaylen Brown, it has to open up the question about how a trade could happen. Will a trade come? Jrue got 2 more years on his deal. Porziņģis, he has 1 more year on his deal. Tons of trade offers are going to be coming. And a pretty big update here now that the first big domino has fallen. At least a big domino. Of course, you had Desmond Bane and things like that. But the season is officially over. Congratulations to the Thunder for winning the NBA Finals, whether you like him or hate him. They won it, fair and square. Unfortunately, Tyrese Haliburton got injured, which opens up a lot of, question marks, and more teams now are going to be willing to buy in the trade market here in a wide open Eastern Conference. But it's going to be interesting. You guys are beasts. Thanks for watching. See you there.